Hi everyone, it's Rax, bringing you a Path of Exile 2 video. Grinding Your Games has written up kind of a little memo about how they think everything has gone so far with POE2, and as well as the key things that they're working on for the future. Just want to take you through what they said, what is coming in the future, and just my opinion on it. One thing that I would like to preface this video with is I think relative to most players and content creators about POE2, I think my opinion of the game is more favorable than most people. A lot of other streamers, understandably, it's been 2 months since it's out with no new real content, have went to go play other games. It makes sense. I'm still playing PoE for many hours every day, or PoE2, excuse me, for many hours every day, and I'm still having a lot of fun. I have 663 hours in the game with no end in sight. And I have 9 characters in the end game, and 3 of them are in hardcore SSF. So I've seen both trade and solo. All I'm trying to say is I will have some criticisms in this video, but I am in general very favorable toward the game and grinding your games in the future. With that in mind, let's just jump into it. So the first thing they said is they've been focusing a lot on quality of life. So 2 of the big ones that they added are the ability to teleport around the maps with checkpoints in the endgame and to overwrite your sockets. The overriding the sockets was a huge one. Everyone was crying about that. That was a big change. They reduced the cost of respecking. They fixed the dodge roll. Remember when you got one-shotted by the beetles? God, that made me mad. And they made reviving easier in multiplayer. So obviously all these things happened. I'm happy for all of them. Thank you. The one thing for me that just does not work, this really can't be the solution, is this part. The ability to teleport around the map with checkpoints. Yes, they added checkpoints, and then they added even more checkpoints, but I was mapping all day today, and there were still many times where I left an elite in the middle of the map, and there's just a checkpoint at the end and at the beginning. So no matter what, I'm still having this situation fairly often where I'm running back through half of the map, killing nothing. And I'm really wondering if grinding your games has some kind of permanent solution for this. I don't know if more checkpoints is the solution. Are they going to stick with, oh, you got to kill a certain number of monsters, which spawns the indicators for the rares on the minimap, and then you either have to use the checkpoints that they give you or walk back? Like, are they committed to doing that? Is that how it's going to be? Or do they have some kind of better solution? I don't have a better solution to offer currently, but it feels like what they're currently doing just isn't right. The rest of these things I think made the game a lot better. Improving the core experience with mapping the endgame it's a hard area to test. So first of all, they improved the rewards of the endgame substantially. They buffed drops from rare monsters and decreased the difficulty at the start of the endgame. The decrease the difficulty at the start of the endgame, I think, was absolutely required. When you move from the campaign to starting the endgame, all the blasters and all the pro players, they're going to figure out how to get through it no matter what. But a lot of people new to the franchise that get to mapping, and their first experience was quite negative. People said that they got to mapping, got shit on, so that was a good change. One thing that I believe it was Ben brought up in his video is one thing that feels bad to him is almost all of the loot comes from rare monsters. Like, you go into your main tree and you buff into like adding more rare monsters and adding more rare monsters with the modifiers, then you put more rare monsters on your maps. It's really like all of the loot comes from them, so killing all the other trash in the map doesn't really help you except for to see the indicators where the rare monsters are. And I wonder if that's intended, because I almost never get any drops from the trash and everything comes from the rares of the bosses. So this does feel better, but I wonder if this combo if Grinding Gear Games feels that it's ideal. They made a lot of balance adjustments within individual maps, did a full rebalance of all content that can spawn in maps. They put more of everything, and they undershot the number of bosses. Then they give you a boss tablet, which is right here. They added respawning to the endgame pinnacles. I think for a lot of players, especially the casual players, this is a very nice change. And the checkpoints for traveling in maps, again, not sure if that's the solution. The strong boxes are better. when I walk by them now, I do them. I can't say I've gotten anything great from them, but they are at least noticeably better. And they did make it easier to find citadels. This was a nice change, and they're doing a lot more. In general, the changes that they're making are making the game better. Still some questions on how things are going to end up. They improved itemization. A very large number of them were buffs to a lot of uniques at low levels, and they need to do more for build defining uniques going forward. There are a couple of them, and the build defining uniques that do exist, I think they're very actually intelligently designed. Like the everlasting gaze, your mana now gives you energy shield, and then you combine that with taking eldritch battery. So eldritch battery, I believe, is your energy shield becomes your mana, but then you wear the everlasting gaze, then it takes your mana and gives you back your energy shield. Something like that is so cool and so rewarding as a mechanic. I really hope to see more of these to come up with some more crazy builds. For me, this is one of the key things that makes Path of Exile so fun to play. So I'm glad that they're doing more in this space. Bad balance outliers. They made changes to monsters and bosses to fix one-shots. I would say I was actually pleasantly surprised by the patch notes. For example, I was like, bro, if they don't change Tornado Bird here, I'm gonna lose it. They changed Tornado Bird. So they did a pretty good job of analyzing what are the most egregious outliers, and it's made it possible for me to get 3 characters in hardcore SSF into the end game if it's just filled with one shots everywhere that I can't assume is coming, that I'm just gonna die. Better telegraphing, buffed minimum item drops. This actually made a huge difference, actually. When I was playing through the campaign and the bosses, I think they said the bosses are guaranteed to drop a rare item. It actually helps because the crafting system doesn't help us at all, which I'll get to later. There is one thing I want to talk about improved telegraphing. There are a lot of situations where I still cannot tell that an attack is coming. And usually I either figure it out because I just get damaged by it, or I've ran it before. Just to give you an example, when I run the Trial of Chaos and you pick like the red lightning circles, there are literally red lightning circles on the ground. And I'm not colorblind. I can take the Enchroma colorblind test right now. I'll pass it 100 out of 100 times. But the red circle is so faint. I mean, I can see that it's there, but only if I really, really pay attention. I would love to see them go further with the improved telegraphing. And for example, when I'm playing my Pathfinder, I'm playing Poison Concoction. I'm throwing poison all over the ground. It looks almost identical to like an on-death effect, like the poison chaos damage on-death effect. I can't tell if it's my poison or if it's theirs. They've said that they will not add like a boss mode or any mode like that like diminishes the effects so you can just see what's going on. Personally, I understand why they take that position. They think it's like cheap and they want the artwork to stand out, da 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 da. But if we aren't going to get that, I would really love to see them put way more effort into this, especially against the really, really deadly stuff. I need it to be like priority number 1 on my screen. I need it to supersede all the other effects, and I need it to be very clear that I need to avoid it. They adjust the difficulties in the different trials. On the player's side of things, they did a big pass to improve the balance of many skills, but there's a lot more to come. There needs to be a lot more here, but it's like one patch into early access, so I'll give them a pass on that one. They attempted to address some of the more overpowered player skills, but backed off somewhat in order to prevent breaking people's characters. We initially thought that there would be more tolerance for this kind of thing during early access, but we were incorrect. We'll save those changes for larger balance updates. I give Grinding Gear Games credit. They did a big nerf. They nerfed Cast on Freeze day 2, bricked everybody's sorcerers. Everybody got mad, and then they said, "Okay, wait, let's dial it back. We're going to make the changes, but as part of a big patch." I think there's 2 sides of the story, right? So first of all, Grinding Gear Games is developing the game, and they want to develop the game into the game that they want it to be, and they have the final say. We're the players or the audience, da 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 da. We can voice our opinions very strongly on what we want to come into the game, but at the end of the day, they're the ones coding it. They're the ones who press the release button. It's up to them, right? But even though this is an early access period to gather a bunch of feedback and data, remember that a lot of people are just simply enjoying the game. They paid for early access for POE2, and they're just enjoying the game and building up their character. If you just crucify every powerful thing every week, it doesn't give anybody a chance to stick with anything, and you're going to hurt a lot of the player base. Again, me, I'll just make another character. I don't care, but the huge chunk of the pie is going to care if their characters get nerfed every week. I think this is an awesome realization on them. Even though it's an early access, it's a playground, they should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. I think they should save it for big content updates unless there's something horrifically wrong, which they said right here they'll fix. This crashes and performance issues, a lot of stuff here. They're fixing it. They explain a lot of things. They're trying to fix more of it. A lot of people crash all the time. It's a big problem. It's here. Cool. This is the part about the future. The biggest problems. Major balance issues with many players' skills builds being too high or too low. Not enough character build options, including build defining uniques. Endgame progression balance is off. Not enough cool things to find in the endgame. I'm going to talk about all these. I got paint ready. And one final thing that they said is they plan to release major content updates for POE2 every few months. And we'll announce it as soon as we can. So I am thinking that my initial timeline for another bigger patch was wrong. I was thinking it was going to be sooner, like within this month. Judging by reading this sentence, if I can read between the lines here, I'm thinking like it's not coming in the immediate future. So now I'm thinking like maybe March, like at the earliest. That's the way that I interpret it, but I could be wrong. Okay, let's talk about the future stuff. So the first thing, balance is off in the game, things being either too high or too low. I agree with this. Of course, it's early access, like one patch in. People say, God, I hate it when people use the excuse it's early access. I'm not really sure where that anger comes from. Maybe someone can explain it to me in the comments, but they said it was early access, and they said the real game doesn't come out for 1 year, and they said they're going to make a bunch of changes. So I don't know. When I hear that, that's fine. I don't mind this at all. They'll fix it. I have confidence in grinding gear games. Again, I have a favorable opinion here. However, one thing I want to talk about here is obviously when something is underpowered, when it's too low, crossbow reload speed feels like shit early game, or early game warrior feels terrible, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, obviously everyone can agree, developers and players, that that's bad. But one thing that people won't always agree on is when the balance is too high is bad. Now, one thing is the whole point of an ARPG is the end game power fantasy, right? You start off with a character on a stick with a stick on the beach, and then you eventually become a god capable of taking down the pinnacle bosses with relative ease, right? The whole power fantasy there, you become a god. But there is such a thing, definitely, as balance is too high. And I'll just point last season, Diablo 4, to the Spiritborn. It was actually so stupidly strong relative to almost everything else that it actually kind of just invalidated not just the other classes, but almost the entire game. They were just so strong all the time. That was like a taste of how like God mode from the beginning actually takes away from the game as well. So I agree with both of these points that it is a problem of too high and too low. The Gemling Legionnaire, at least the 500 Divine version, where you have, the Pillar of the Cage Gods and the Hands of Wisdom in action, certainly you should be able to reach at God level power. But even the levels that they're reaching, as they had explained on the chat that they had with DM, I think it's too high. So I agree, it's both of these things. Then they said that there's not enough character build options. So we're going to get a lot more base classes and a lot more ascendancies. People are going to get really upset at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's my opinion. I actually don't think I don't log into POE2 and say I don't have enough cool builds to make, and that's taking away my fun. I have 9 characters in the endgame, and I can think of a lot more that I could make. I think they're already doing decent in this department. And by the time that they release, they're going to have double the number of base classes, right? And triple the number of ascendancies. It's 12 and 36. Right now we have 6 and 12. Is that it? I don't know. Do I have that right? Something like that. Way more options. So I don't think they're doing so bad in this thing, but one thing that keeps getting brought up, which I didn't really hear a big sense of urgency from them, and I think this is a big problem, is how you build defenses. You want to know what I do on every class? I start out my class and I say, okay, any class, warrior, ranger, mage, it doesn't matter. How do I get you as much energy shield as possible? That's literally all I think about. And if a character, maybe like a warrior, may really struggle to build energy shield, then I'm starting to worry. It's like, okay, what exactly am I going to do? Evasion is decent because you can go get acrobatics and stuff like that. And the monks kind of do the hybrid thing with the energy shield. That kind of works. But I still think armor is garbage. And I think life is garbage. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have seen really no solid examples where these things are not true. I think I would love to hear their thoughts on the state of defenses and what we plan to do about it, because this to me is where I feel extremely limited. How do I make my character live? I feel like I've got one really good option, one decent option, and everything else sucks. That being energy shield and evasion. So I'm very interested to hear what they're going to do with defenses. The endgame progression balance. So, one thing that I was talking with my stream with today, and again, I want to preface this by saying something here. Grinding gear games does a lot of times a very good job in making you make a choice. They give you choices and they force you to make a choice, which is good. But both of those things working together are good. And what I mean by that is, like a counterexample, when there's just one way to do everything and everyone's doing the exact same thing, the game sucks. But one thing that I've noticed about doing mapping as I get more and more characters very, very high, I feel like you have two options with mapping. Either you run in a straight line as far as you can to the edge with towers, and you just run in a straight line until you see the beam of light to get the citadels to go fight the pinnacle bosses. Or what you do is you get to a tower and then you run all the shitty maps around the tower to eliminate them. Then you plug a bunch of tablets in towers and really, really juice up the nodes on the map. Then then you craft your really godly maps themselves, and then you combine all of that with a bunch of mechanics and the tablets and the maps themselves, and then you make a shitload of loot. But those things really don't seem to intersect at all. You either run in a straight line to the edge, or you sit back in and you do a concentrated set of maps. And it's left me like a little bit conflicted as a player, because I'm like, well, I would like to make progression toward the pinnacle boss, but when I'm running in a straight line and I just hit a tower and I just use a tablet, you have no control over it. I think Zizrin has made this point multiple times in his podcasts and in his videos. He feels that, not to put words in his mouth, but if I'm quoting him correctly, he says he doesn't have really any agency, any real control over it. You just plug the tablet, you hit go, and it sprays 10 maps with some random thing. It'll almost never hit the map that you want unless you explicitly stay there and eliminate the shitty maps so the good stuff goes where you want it to. But then when you stay there, you're not moving outward to look for cool things like hideouts, da da da. Da. And they said in the blog that they're going to add more cool endgame stuff to look for. Am I going to find it standing still by the towers, eliminating the shitty maps to make really juiced maps? So what I'm not saying is, grinding gear games, I want you to dummy down the end game so I can just run in a straight line and that's the optimal thing and I just win. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, it feels a little bad that I have no control over how these tablets are actually distributed. And it actually matters. When you start to get in the end game, like maybe you guys listen to me ramble here and it makes no sense, but as I play more and more end game, this is more and more how I feel. I feel like it's very polarized, actually. And I wonder if that was the design. Completing the maps. I already talked about this with the checkpoints, but I really wonder, are they 100% sure that this is how the maps finish? Or, again, if I remember Ben's video that he had about the end game, he hated it. He said that he misses doing bosses. He can sometimes go hours without fighting a boss. I'm not even saying that fighting a boss at the end of every map is the answer, but completing maps in PoE2, the way in which you complete them feels just worse to me than in PoE1. So I really wonder if they have any plans here. Would love to hear their thoughts on that at some point. Another thing that is really, really off, I think, are the actual endgame mechanics themselves. Breach, no doubt about it. Breach is beautiful. It's fun to run because it's just a shitload of monsters to kill, and you expand out. You have like some optimization there. You get a shitload of XP. You get godly items. You get a solid stream of the currency to go fight the pinnacle boss, and then the pinnacle boss itself is so cool, and it's a great boss fight. Breach right now is like the standard for end game systems that I think a Path of Exile 2 should try to reach for the other things. Now, I've heard many, many times a lot of people make 30 divines an hour off of ritual. They get 10 invitations a day. Fine. I'm assuming these are people that have gotten the invitations, they buffed up their ritual insanely, and then the ritual rewards get buffed. I just play ritual. I have never fought the King of the Mist. You want to know why I've never fought him? It's King of the Mist for ritual, right? I don't know. I wouldn't know. I've never fought him. You want to know why I think ritual sucks so bad? It's because I don't have any points into it. I just run the ritual as they are in my maps. I have never one time, never gotten an invitation to the King of the Mist. I've never seen it one time. So yes, people say, oh, well, it's the best thing in the game. Make 30 divines an hour. Rax, you're so stupid. Stop saying ritual sucks. Right. But what I'm saying is when you're like, if I'm like in hardcore SSF, for example, never even found King of the Mist one time. So I can't get to the point where ritual is great because I can't even really start it. And another example would be Simulacrum is apparently a lot more difficult. I actually haven't done a Simulacrum yet. Everyone says, without a doubt, it's the hardest shit in the entire game. Way harder than the other mechanics. So we're talking about endgame balance here. That's why I'm bringing this stuff up. A little bit of the balance stuff I think is needed. I think Breach is the thing that you've designed the best so far. They're going to put more cool things in the end game. I mean, this is why I play. That is the reason why I play. People like the campaign. People like the story. People like the different characters. There's a million reasons why you could like an ARPG. I'm going to tell you why I like ARPGs is for endgame. And I want to look for cool shit in the endgame and get the dopamine hit when it drops. That's why I play. So yes, the fact that this is a priority for you is huge to me. I'll be honest with you. I don't think you've done the worst job so far. I'm enjoying playing the end game. I can't even fight the King of the Mist one time, so I'm still looking for that. I can't even fight him one time. But the more that you add to this game, the more I'm going to like it. Now, originally, when I was going to do this video's getting way too long. It's 24 minutes. Jesus Christ! All right, let's wrap this up here pretty quickly. I actually had a huge list that I was going to talk about here about a million other things. Where okay, they put 4 things that they're going to worry about in the future, but I am very surprised that at least one of them did not make the list, and that's crafting. Tell me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I would say the biggest problem with Path of Exile 2 is the crafting system. Every single thing is just a slot machine. It's just right click, left click, pray for the best. I have almost zero control over how things go. How do you have any control? Essence crafting, that lets you put one mod on it, and omens block certain things or enable certain things to happen. I'm playing hardcore SSF. I have 3 very powerful, very high level characters: a 92, a 90, and like an 83 or something. You want to know what I do with crafting? I just transmute, I augment, I regal. It's always dog shit. I put it in a stash and I 3-to-1 it, meaning you turn 3 into a new one and identify it, and that's usually trash. And I just do that 1,000 times until I magically hit the +5 lightning on a wand. That's what I do. I don't know of anything else. And the crafting in POE1 was so good. Let me just give you one example. It's a simple example, but let me give you one example. I'm playing through the campaign. It's 10 acts, right? Well, for a lot of players, the campaign is almost the entire season, right? Most players are casuals. Most players are not going to run a million maps, right? So the 10-act campaign is actually a huge chunk of the game for people. You want to know what you do in POE1? Whenever you get a yellow of any kind that's even remotely decent, you go to your hideout and you go to your crafting bench, and for almost no currency, you can add one fairly chonky stat of something that you need. You get boots that have dual res and life, but they have no movement speed. No problem. Boom, hideout, movement speed. There you go. One example. You want to know what I do in POE2? I just keep killing monsters, and I just keep looking at the yellows, and I just pray that the yellows are good, because I'm never going to find enough exalts to exalt something into something good. I'm going to find no alchemies. I'm going to have practically 0 essences. And my second best option is buying gear from the vendor, if I can acquire the gold to do so. I think this is borderline one of, like, probably the biggest problem with POE2, is it not? Or am I crazy? I'm very surprised that this was not on their list of things to be updated. But maybe I'm missing something. I'll say one more thing out of the whole list. One thing that takes away from my enjoyment of POE2 the most currently is on-death effects. So part of it goes back to what I was talking about the visibility. I'm playing Poison Concoction, I'm throwing poison, and I have the Decompose boots. So it's poison and decompose in the entire map. My whole map is green. I can't see anything. So I just run forward, and then, every once in a while, half of my energy shield is gone. Boom. Didn't see anything, but I'm never going to see anything because the whole ground is green. So it's not just the visibility part. I'm very surprised about what it has turned into. Is when I get a really, really powerful character, unless I'm like insanely tanky, I can go into a room and clear the whole room. Like I blow up the whole room, and then I wait. I wait like 2 seconds because I just I'm not paying attention to what debuffs or buffs an elite has, or what the trash mobs have. I just assume something has an on-death effect of something. So I just sit there for 2 or 3 seconds, boom, 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 well, whatever, and then I move forward. This whole like stop and go play style in the end game, to me, it's just such a buzzkill. It's already a lot slower. It's going to be a lot slower than POE1. In POE1, you're absolutely zooming, right? I'm already playing slower, but then I'm playing slower with the stop and go scared mentality. Eventually, you get your energy shield to like 10,000 on a lot of these characters. And then it's like, okay, I'm so strong now with my Grim Feast. It doesn't matter. Whatever. Let 3 death effects hit me at the same time. I'll probably be able to tank it. And then you just deal with it that way. But I actually really think that this is taking away from the game. I think I don't even want PoE. I don't even want grinding your games to make the game easier. You could make the monsters themselves more difficult and harder to kill, or more vicious, as a way to compensate for this. But this being the main way that you scare me in dying, to me, is actually just a total buzzkill, and it's way less fun than if you did it in other ways. So for me personally, right now, 670 hours in the first 2 months, still playing, still loving the game. I'm very surprised to see crafting and on-death effects not there. That'd be top 2 for me. What would be your top 2 that isn't on the list, or is it the top things that that grinding your games has put here? Anyway, what's the time? 30 minutes. I got to end the video, guys. Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble, but I really wanted to talk about this. I really care about this game. I hope you guys are liking POE2, and I am looking forward to what Grinding Gear Games is going to release. They are making the game better all the time. I'm interested to see what's coming next. Thank you.